Hello and welcome back to Match Day Matinee, the show where we endlessly rank and review cinematic takes of the beautiful game. I am your host for today, and as always, I am joined by Mark. How are you doing, Mark?
Adam, I'm going to break the fourth wall here to begin with and say we're recording this on the day that Portugal has just escaped the group of death. So I'm exhausted from this near group of death experience that we had today. And
it was it was pretty intense. I had a vested interest in it too because of England playing whoever finished second in that group.
Yeah.
And it changed like 4 times. At one point we were playing Hungary, which was like, that's like the best possible thing. Yeah. Then it flipped to Germany when they equalised. And that's how it ended, kind of. England are playing Germany, which is pretty nuts.
Okay, well, literally, I think Portugal at some point during the match was in every position.
Yeah, yes, I did see that, yeah. Because I guess you took the lead against France?
Did we? Yeah, we did because we had the first penalty.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
we had the first penalty, so at one point we were top of the table.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who do you have in the last 16 now? I forget.
Belgium.
Ooh, that is a good game.
Sunday. Belgium hasn't been living up to their potential, right? I think they struggled against smaller country. I can't remember which one. Like Slovakia or something, maybe?
I forget what group. It's so hard to remember. There's too much football, isn't there?
Yeah, well, yeah.
We're a couple of days off now.
Yeah.
But pretty good. It's the business end of the Euros now, the knockouts. It's always exciting. So anyway, to move on from that, it is what are you wearing? And it's both kind of related to England and Portugal that we just mentioned. So I'm wearing England's current new blue away shirt, which they wore in the first game against Croatia where they won 1-0. And they've been wearing white ever since. And Mark, I noticed you're wearing a Portugal shirt, but I'm not exactly sure what era it is.
It is the 2004 home shirt. So like it would have been around the time they were
stuff.
Deco, Maniche, Figu, like Ronaldo was just starting. So actually in this kit, this is one of the things I regret with this kit when I got it was not getting the numbers put on it. Because back then they had the circle with the Nike numbers inside that kind of had the like the stipple on them. And Ronaldo was 17 back then. I did get his numbers on the away kit from this year, but I got him at like some dodgy like mom and pop jersey place, and they just used some random numbers. They had them back. Yeah. So
that's what that ruined shirts Twitter account always has people that do that. Like you'll have like Real Madrid, but with like Premier League numbers on the back, and it's like, how
good love that. That's a nice kit though. It almost looks like the Score Retro ones, right? Like it's got and it's not. That's the official one.
Yeah, this is their actual away kit, which is more style to look retro. Like it's got a collar and it's got like the design. So we did have a blue kit, a little bit like this in the Italia 90. We had a blue kit a little bit like this.
It looks like it's a little bit punched up on that one as well.
Yeah, it's punched out. Yeah,
nice. That's cool.
It's pretty nice. Yeah. All right. So without further ado, are you ready to dive into this week's movie?
Not at all.
It is related to the Euros. In the build-up to England's campaign, I found a movie about the Euros. It is called My Summer with Des. My Summer with Des is a British rom-com set during the summer that football came home, Euro 96. It was originally broadcast on May 25th, 1998 to coincide with the start of World Cup 98. It was released on video on May 26th, and a DVD release was planned for August 2008, but was subsequently cancelled. It has no Rotten Tomato listing and only one critic review on IMDb, which didn't give it a rating. And then it doesn't have enough reviews to have a user rating either. So I had to add up the ones that gave it a score and did the maths myself. It has an average rating of 6.75. So before we dive into the full plot synopsis, I do want to touch on how hard this film was to find. Like, I saw this film and I was like, right, Euro 96, football's coming home, we're doing this. So the VHS has long since been out of print and routinely goes for like hundreds of dollars on eBay, which is insane. insane. There's no version on DVD, as I mentioned. The release got cancelled. There are versions on YouTube, but as we'll get into, there's a hell of a lot of archive footage in this. So UEFA routinely copyright strikes any copies end up on YouTube. So the only versions that are on YouTube missing all of the football footage, which kind of renders the film pointless. It would be a little bit shorter though. So I ended up going to Reddit, found a subreddit for people that can request TV shows, and kind of said, I know this is a bloody long shot, but does anybody have a copy of this movie? A guy kindly replied, uploaded it somewhere on the internet for me, and then I downloaded it, and lo and behold, it worked. He had it because he was obsessed with Rachel Weisz, one of the actresses. And then after that, I had a couple of messages off a guy who was like, hey, did you ever get that copy of that film? Because we've got a whole WhatsApp group waiting desperately to watch this movie. So they are called the Hi Ken Roy Evans WhatsApp group. So shout out to them. They got a copy as well because they all wanted to watch it ready for the Euros. So yeah, definitely the first adventure we've had trying to get hold of a copy of a movie that, if it wasn't for all the archive footage, would be up on YouTube, because it doesn't seem like they care. They've obviously abandoned the rights long ago. It's made by Carlton TV, which I don't know if they still exist, but they're kind of like a subsidiary of of ITV, one of the TV networks in England. Just a production company, so they've obviously long since stopped caring.
Yeah, I was going to say, you might have incriminated yourself. Like, I'm sure they don't care about the video, but this is very loosely, they very loosely formed a narrative around the actual matches themselves. So I'm sure UEFA might be cracking down on you.
Well, I didn't name the Reddit. They can try and find the private WhatsApp group and nail those guys.
Break them all down.
Anyway, should we get into the plot synopsis?
Is there a plot in this movie?
I will say, this is a long plot, but more like loose, just things that happen. If listeners manage to keep up, good for them. And when we get to the end of the plot point, I have a question for you, because there's a major plot device in this film that I just do not understand.
Okay. I was hoping you would explain it to me.
Okay. So we meet Martin, played by Neil Morrissey, who, depending on your age, you'll either recognize as bumbling Tony from Men Behaving Badly or the voice of Bob the Builder. As he sits in Paris recounting the beautiful summer of '96, cue three lions playing for the first of about 20 times, whilst a French waiter does his best halftime show tricks. We rewind to 1996, where Martin is being asked by his boss to prove he wants the job, and instead he imagines Des Lynam introducing the final of Euro 96, dying in Scotland. He walks out and quits his job to erase his blaring, football street fans in the streets, and another cut to Des Lynam, who we're told we'll be spending a summer with, and instead we learn we all spent the summer with him via the TV. Shortly after this, we meet Rachel Weisz's character, Rosie, who apparently is sometimes a time-traveling woman who loves football and Martin, but also apparently slept with Eric Cantona and Jarvis Cocker just because. Martin gets drunk, sings in the street, and on the next day wakes up hungover and cooks some bacon. It's this point I realised he was just playing a sanitised version of his Men Behaving Badly character mixed with like a typical football lad. Rosie takes an interest in him. They go on a weird date that involves not talking and making animal noises. We see him fill out a Euro 96 wall chart, and we see him embracing watching 6 games in 2.5 days, which we all do when it's Euros. England and Scotland meet. Martin kisses Rosie after Gazza's goal goes in. His friend sees him on TV. They then go into some kind of police porter cabin to have sex and get caught whilst chanting Jimmy Hill. Police officer doesn't seem bothered and just makes some random quip. They then go home, have their fun whilst chanting Jimmy Hill again, bizarrely. Jimmy Hill describes Gazza, asking about, saying what a performance it was and where did that come from someone so old. I think that was an attempt at a joke. Martin finally gets sacked. England beat Holland 4-1, and then Spain 0-0 on penalties. Now a house party. Martin has a house party to celebrate, set to All Right by Supergrass, which is a really good song. Yeah. Rosie has been a bit of an enigma up to this point in the movie, refuses to answer any questions, and then he says, wait, I have one question. I can't think. We could wait. Will you do me a favor? She asks him if that's the question. And then he says, will you take me to the semi-final right now? And this is where there's been hints all the way through the movie that she can somehow see the future. But here we kind of learn that she can actually just travel through time. And as if by magic, they're at the semi-final.
Well, they didn't write that part of the script. So instead of just trying to fill that plot, They just said, let's just skip ahead to the match. Everyone wants to see it. We're at 83 minutes of runtime. Let's just skip ahead.
That was my question at the end.
Yeah.
So Rosie knows the result as she knows everything, and she wants to soak everything up. This bit, genuine shivers down my spine. This game is incredible. Loved any minute of it. Shearer's early goals, 3 minutes. Kuntz equalising in 16 minutes. Anderson hitting the post. A Germany goal that got ruled out. That Gazza miss. Martin comes to the realisation at this point that he regrets nothing about what's happened. This has been the best 19 days of his life, and he doesn't mean Euro 96. He means that he's actually started to like himself. She tells him that he knows what he has to do, and she reveals to him the result of the final and the first goal scorer. We then see Gareth Southgate famously step up and miss, and it's absolutely horrible. It's the second penalty lost for England in 6 years at a major tournament. Martin goes after Rosie, but he can't find her and ends up in a pub. Comes to the realisation that he has to put a bet on the final. He has a drink with David Seaman, bizarrely, who's drowning his sorrows in the same pub. It turns out, ultimately, the bets saved him, and he's in France now covering World Cup 98 as a reporter. She's left him a letter, which is a bit of a like Back to the Future Western Union moment at the end of Back to the Future 2 when Doc's left Marty a letter saying when he gets struck by lightning, and she's still somehow around. And the movie ends with Beethoven's Ode to Joy, which was the BBC Euro 96 song, as Rosie gets in a taxi, and lo and behold, in the taxi is Des Lynam sat with her. So Mark, when exactly was it revealed that she was a time traveler?
It never was. And I want to say, Adam, why did you make me watch this movie? It was terrible. We have a massive list of football movies that we could have watched, and yet we went for Summer of Des.
In my defense,
okay,
Euro 96 was the greatest Euros to me ever. It's the year football came home. It's my first ever. I've talked about it before. I watched Italia 90 allegedly with my dad. I don't remember it. I didn't watch World Cup 94 because England didn't qualify. Euro 96, I was 12. Everyone in school was super into it. So I thought this movie would be a good chance to reminisce. And I think it thinks it did a good job of it.
And you've never seen this movie. This was your first time watching it.
This was my first time seeing it. Of course, like I've seen all of this footage time to time. Like some of the Des Lynam quotes, that's what's weird. Some of the Des Lynam quotes were made for this movie, clearly. But others, I remember him saying them, like the game before the Germany game, he's like, good evening, there's some football on, just in case you didn't know, or something like that. Like everyone recognizes that clip. But otherwise, this movie was terrible. So
it was bad. It's an objectively bad movie, and I say that knowing that there's a 7-minute deep dive on YouTube where the guy praises this movie. So I have no idea. Maybe he put himself in Neil Morrissey's shoes and he enjoyed it, but nothing about this movie works for me.
And I think even does a bad job of using the highlights they have. Like they have a lot of highlights that they use throughout the film. They do a terrible job of like presenting them properly. Like you don't even see moments in order. And maybe that's something to do with the time traveling. But like they're showing you clips from the Germany game at the very beginning and stuff and all that crap. Yeah. And then there's a couple of terrible like sex scenes where he's imagining having sex and he's intercutting it with goals going in. And it's like such a 90s lads view of football. It's a football wanker's wet dream, right? Yes. Like I think I described to you. But who is this movie for then? Like, okay, so a regular family movie in Europe, is there that much nudity in it, or not even the nudity, like the sex scenes? It would cut to a woman randomly moaning, and then at one point, like you mentioned in your plot description, but he hides away into a police box with Rosie. Yeah. And then she's laughing about something. He's like, "Oh, are you laughing at me?" And she's like, "No, I just love to come." And it's like, that's not even a good line on its own, but in a family movie or whatever this is meant to be, I don't get it. And like, that would be a bad line in like something that's trying to be like an American Pie or something. Like, there's just no context to it because she definitely didn't in that time because they got caught by the police officer super fast. No. Like, they were just getting onto things. And it's just...
So she's part of his imagination, obviously, right? Like even when she first shows up, they're talking about Eric Cantona, and she says, "I've had sex with him," and then somebody else, I can't remember the name.
Jarvis Cocker, yeah, the lead singer of Pulp.
Oh, Pulp, really? Okay, I like Pulp. And then throughout the movie, there's things that she would only know if she was
him.
Him, yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't make much sense.
But then,
and then like you go for it.
But then how does he predict the score? Like, did he just predict the score to win all that money?
Yeah, that's a good point. Because at one point she's saying, I shouldn't tell you this, but Gazza is about to score a breathtaking goal now.
Yeah, and that happens. Like, that's the other thing. So it's not so much she can travel through time until towards the end. The point is that she can she's like clairvoyant or psychic.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they have that house party, and he asks her the question, and he's like, I just want to go straight to the semi-final. And she's like, okay. And then next thing you know, they're walking up Wembley Way to the... Yeah. Like, did he actually have a rager of a party and then just wake up to like 3 days later and he's like, right, semi-final it is?
Okay, so that ties in with the theory I just thought of, which is he starts this movie as a narrator and he's reminiscing about it as he's sitting on the banks of the Seine River in Paris. And now that he's a football writer and he has the David Seaman mustache, is this his drunken recollection of how things were back then? So he quits his job, and then for 19 days, he's just binge drinking and enjoying football, which fair to him.
Maybe.
And then he's looking back on it and he's misremembering how everything was.
Mate, you know what? Maybe that is it. Because you do that, don't you? Even look back when you were a kid, you remember like summer was always sunny. Every day was like the hottest day ever. It was incredible. And it's like, summer's not like that. It rains half the time.
Yeah.
It's still hot. Maybe you're right. Maybe that is it. Like, and even think about, if you reminisce about like nights out you had and stuff, you think, oh, it was the greatest of times. There were plenty of nights where it was probably shit and it wasn't worth the money or the effort to go out. But yeah, maybe an entire summer of just boozing has made him idealize what was an awesome summer anyway for... but people often talk about that tournaments, don't they? They get bigged up in your mind and then actually you go back and look at it and the football was terrible sometimes. And
like... One of my favorite tournaments is 2006, and I think we talked about this, where it's more about the people you're with, you enjoy it with, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that was, did we mention that before, where Des was saying that,
it's Jimmy Hill, the woman thing? Where the women get involved? Yeah.
When the women get involved, So was that in the movie, or was that a quote that you pulled up?
No, that was in that. At some point, it cuts to the audience, and Jimmy Hill's talking about how football's important when the housewives start to get involved with the girlfriends. Yeah, that is in the movie. Yeah, and it's true, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's what we were talking about. So that was my favorite tournament, just because Portugal made it so far into that tournament. I think they made it to the semifinals that year. Italy actually made it to the finals, obviously 2006, and won it. And I was dating my wife at that time, so she was involved in the whole thing with me. We went down to Woodbridge. We did the whole driving around with the flag outside of the car.
Nice.
Looking back, 2006 was actually an amazing tournament. It was a lot of fun watching Portugal that year, just because they had such an exciting attacking team. But that made it even better, right? Mm-hmm. Just that shared experience around it, and that was kind of like the last hurrah before finding a full-time job. And by the time Euro 2008 rolled around, I was working full-time, so you couldn't really enjoy it. And unless you're going to quit your job like Neil Morrissey did.
But yeah, nothing about this film was good outside of the archive footage. And even that wasn't well presented at times, because they jumped the gun and showed Southgate's penalty, like the run up to that. They showed Gazza's goal numerous times. So it wasn't special when you got to see those moments in the context of the film. So they even butchered that in some respect. Do you have a lot else to say? There's genuinely not a lot else to say about this film. It's not funny. I don't even think it's funny by the standards of that era. Like there's way better British family comedies. I mentioned in my description, he's playing a sanitized version of a character he played in another show. That show is way funnier than this was. There's better adult comedies of this era that were out there as well. So it's neither here nor there of everything, but it reminds you of a great time. But I would rather just go and watch the goals of the tournament video on UEFA's YouTube channel, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, exactly. They've done better jobs of putting out these tournament highlight reels and recaps and reviews, right? Like they have an amazing one of the USA 94 and the Euros as well. And it's almost like BBC got the footage of that and they just kind of built a narrative around it, and it doesn't work at all. And it's so poorly done where there's all these random jump cuts, and the editor on this movie, I hope he never worked again. It's a terrible thing to say, but I hope
I'd have to look up. I don't know, to be honest.
So the director of this was the same as An Evening with Gary Lineker, or was it just kind of...
the writer was the same. I'm not sure about the director. So they're both written by Arthur Smith, who's traditionally was a stage writer.
Right.
And then went on to write those two movies for sure.
Euro 96. The reason you want to watch this movie was because of that one particular tournament. What was it that stands out in your mind as the 13, 14-year-old Adam, I'm guessing at that point?
12.
12? Okay, it's fairly close.
Portsmouth were terrible around this time. Very famous for being, and then the subsequent years after this, way worse, which we'll kind of get into a little bit later. So England was my only opportunity to support like actually good players. Yeah. Because I think like in this era, Portsmouth finished in the bottom half of what's now the Championship, like 8 times out of 10 seasons or something. It was abysmal. And we scraped away, avoided relegation last day, so many seasons. We were terrible. So this was my opportunity to support great players that were my own and feel a sense of identity with it. And then I talk about on social media all the time how that Gazza goal is one of my most favorite goals of all time. Everything that led up to it. So there's the first goal, absolutely brilliant, playing across the back, and then fullbacks pushing up and a cross goes into Shearer. And then Scotland get a penalty. David Seaman saves the penalty. I think it's from the subsequent corner. They have a counter-attack. Darren Anderson, former Pompey boy, loops the ball up to Gazza, and then he just flicks it over Colin Hendry's head, and it's just sublime. I can remember that bizarrely. I don't know how we ended up watching it, or we did. We watched it in a fishing tackle shop with one of my dad's friends who owned that shop. And that guy was effing and blinding, was so happy, apologizing to my dad for swearing in front of me and my brother. And he was like, "Oh no, it's good, swear away." That was incredible. And stuff and just from that moment, it was amazing. And then we beat Holland 4-1 afterwards, which was some of that's as a result of their own infighting that they allegedly had, but it was still an incredible performance. And then having all that momentum, getting all the way to the semi-final, and it's slowly building up, and just a real sense of optimism that England hadn't had until then. It was really bizarre.
Only to lose it on penalties to
Germany,
which, penalties in England, iconic duel.
Yeah, what is it? It was that Spain shootout was the first ever time we'd won a penalty shootout, and then we didn't win one again until we beat Colombia in the last World Cup.
When was the Spain one? Was that
was in the Euros? When we drew 0-0 in the quarterfinal, we beat them on penalties.
You're in 96?
In 96, yeah. Okay. I don't think we won another shootout. Lost some to Portugal. We lost one to Italy.
Yeah. Well, Portugal lost in 2004, I believe it was.
Yeah.
And that was an amazing one too. That entire match actually was really exciting.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I guess. Same with the and then we 98 with Argentina. So many.
Yes, that 2004 Euro match, I loved it just because we had an amazing team then. I think we've talked about it. Just it was one of those tournaments where I was 16 at the time, so I could have. Actually, I was about it would have been 21, working part time, and I would have been able to just kind of go out and enjoy every minute of it. Right, go downtown Toronto, hang out on college with my then girlfriend, watch every match, walk up and down the streets with the flag. But that particular match, England, I remember, was so exciting, and it went to penalties. Ricardo was all hyped up. He was our keeper, and he was such an exciting character. At one point, he took off his gloves. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, to take his penalty. Yeah.
Well, even before that, he took off his gloves to save a shot against, I think it was Sol Campbell.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then he ended up scoring himself, and I think that was the winning shot.
Yeah, so that was the winning shot, yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of my favorite tournaments. Even Euro 2004, right? Everything around that was almost like football's coming home to Portugal.
Yeah.
But we had like our version of that was Nella Furtado Força.
Okay.
Which was cool because she was a Canadian, Portuguese Canadian, right? Like, much like myself. She came from the same small island that my parents are from, so there was kind of that connection there. And then only to lose it to Greece in the finals. So that entire tournament was kind of special, but I'm sure like nothing compared to Euro 96, right? You being there. And were you able to go to any matches?
No. We all watched at home and stuff. Yeah.
Was there any did they have it back then where they would have like fan zones and stuff like that? Where it was
I don't remember that. It would just mostly was pubs and stuff, right? They may have had them, but I don't remember.
And I think that's probably more of a recent thing where they kind of try to squeeze every sponsorship dollar out of it they can.
Was it the World Cup in Germany was one of the first ones where that was a big, huge thing, was like these dedicated fan zones that were huge. I don't know if they coined it, but
it makes sense, like
2006. But yeah.
Oh, well, I guess
it was actually.
It was the first one, right?
They were the first one to accommodate people planning to visit the World Cup. The experience of public viewing and in other places and partaking cultural events was incorporated.
And it's kind of funny. Like, I'm sure those things were happening beforehand, but now that FIFA and UEFA can kind of present a sanitized version of that,
they'll take the money, won't they?
They'll take it. Yeah. So you mentioned Gazza's goal. Explain Gazza to me as someone who didn't grow up watching. He's such a mysterious character to me, I guess. Like you were saying, wonderful striker. He looks like a hard man, but he's not. He's not like
everyone's seen the Italian 90 where he was crying when he got booked and would have missed the final if England had made it.
Exactly. And now that he's retired, you see him partying it up on cruise boats. Italian Big Brother, I think it is.
Yeah, they're in a nutshell. He was like a tortured genius, I guess. So he saw a childhood friend get run over by a car when he was pretty young. And then ever since then, he's had this, and he mentions it in his autobiography quite a bit. He's had like a genuine, like almost existential death, fear of and dread of dying. So he almost became an alcoholic to block out the worries and concerns about that. So there's two sides of him. There's the football side when he's enjoying football and that's how he can forget. And he's got like crowds adoring him and he could do it. There's the drinking, and then there's kind of all the pranks and stuff and just being daft that also helped him like see a lighter side to life. And like he was a good player, but he had quite a few injuries. Like when he was with Tottenham, he broke his leg doing a bad tackle on somebody. I forget who it was. A few injury problems when he was at Lazio, and it's all because he treated his body like utter crap. But then he had moments like that goal against Scotland. He had a few other moments in an England shirt, and not always like attacking moments. Sometimes he was asked to play like a defensive midfielder and did that job quite well as well. He's got a lot of famous goals for Spurs as well and Rangers as well. Lots of silly celebrations and stuff. But yeah, he wouldn't exist as a pro today. Like he treated his body like crap. Had some substance abuse issues at points in his life.
Like you're saying, he was. Well, I remember with the whole like dentistry incident.
Yeah.
He was kind of the scapegoat for it, right? Because there were other players that kind of were involved
like they were all photographed there, and that
he was on the cover of the Sun, wasn't it?
He was. I think it was his birthday or something, or one of their birthdays.
Yeah.
But even that there was accusations of being a stitch up. Like somebody tipped off the papers that they were there, and then they were all flooded to take pictures. Gazza trashed a plane on the way back because the air hostess wouldn't give him a Budweiser. Again, he says like he just wanted it to like take the edge off flying, basically, but she wouldn't give it to him because I think he was already drunk. So he trashed the plane, and like that made headlines. So yeah, he was definitely an enigma. He tried to get into management and kind of couldn't. He's had a few weird outbursts that have happened since he retired. Like there was a guy, I can't remember what his name was. It was like Raoul Moat or something, who basically, he was running around somewhere in Scotland with a rifle, threatening to kill people. I don't think he actually killed anybody. But then bizarrely, Gazza knew this guy and like tweeted, "Don't worry, I'm coming to save you, mate." And then allegedly was like driving to Scotland to try and get to him. It's like, to what end, you crazy man? But yeah, it's a real shame.
Yeah, that's like, his entire story is almost something you'd want to see made into a movie.
For sure. His autobiography is really good. There's a few different versions of it. Like he's revised it a few times.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a genuine maverick. And it's good that people do remember him for the good things, but then he does crop up in the papers every so often, like drunk. And he's one of those people that never has to buy a drink anywhere. So like people enable him.
Which is unfortunate. Yeah.
It's like not a good thing. He has a lot of really famous friends. Chris Evans and Danny Baker are two like 90s TV personalities that he used to go out drinking a lot with, and there's tons of pictures back in the day of them like outrageously dressed in ridiculously expensive suits and stuff. And yeah.
Well, even some of the outfits, that would be like a good Twitter thread for us to create, like all the crazy outfits at like Gazza's Museum. We've seen him as of late.
The National Football Museum in Manchester actually had at one point the fashion of football, and not only did it have kits and stuff, but it also had like, here's a terrible suit that this person wore here. Here's there's the famous white suits that Liverpool wore for the cup final once when everyone called them the Spice Boys. Like,
I think I recently saw they had Gareth Southgate's waistcoat.
Oh,
but that might have been more recent,
But yeah.
Interesting.
You've asked me a lot of questions about like Euro 96 and stuff. What's like, do you have any particular like Euros memories other than the ones you shared like with your wife and stuff? And
yeah, Euro 2004 was definitely special just because of all the things that I've mentioned. But I think after that, like not a lot happened. 2008, we were in kind of like a transition with Ronaldo being the only big star there, the golden generation gone. But 2016, one of my friends called me up randomly out of the blue and says, hey, one of my friends, so a friend of a friend, had a ticket to one of the Portugal matches that was going to happen in France. Would you like to come? Somebody dropped out. So suddenly I had this like opportunity dropped into my lap. I looked over at my wife. That was the thing, right? I looked over at my wife and I was like, Jesse just invited me to go to the Euros, right? Which is kind of like a surreal sentence to kind of tell your wife. She said, if you want to go for it, right? So at the time I had a 3-year-old daughter, which was kind of tough to like leave her behind and go for a week. But it was an amazing experience. I mean, to actually go to a tournament and like you're saying, there's so much going on, right? There are the official fan zones, but aside from that, you can walk anywhere in the city and there's just people celebrating. Everyone is there for the same reason, right? Just for this one tournament. And you see why countries want to bring these tournaments like the Olympics.
Exactly.
It's just so much. There's so many benefits for tourism where every restaurant is packed, right? And it's not just that it's packed with people who are normally there. It was so much fun to be there and to see like England fans, right? Like my buddy and I were having such a laugh with the England fans, like, don't take me home.
Oh yeah, please. Yeah.
Train after the match at like midnight, right? These guys are still chanting. And one of them is just like, you hear one of his buddies finally behind us, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Just shut the fuck up, right?
I actually think it was, I think it might have been before Euro 2016. I went to watch England play in a pre-season friendly in England. And I went down into the concourse, like I needed to go for a piss like halfway through the second half. And there's just people down there chanting that please don't take me home song and just drinking. It's like, guys, the game's going on. And it's like, you fucking dickheads. Like, what are you, like, people up on their shoulders, just jumping up and down and stuff, singing that song. And it's like, it's not even started yet. And you're already this hyped. It's ridiculous.
It's amazing, right? And just because there's so many different fans from different countries. And I remember leading up to it, it was taking place in France and there was a terrorist attack the year before. And then you saw before you were heading out there, I think transit was about to go on strike. And then on top of that, I think there was the English fans and Russian fans were fighting with each other, where you just saw massive brawls, right? So I'm terrified in my mind jumping on a plane to go into the middle of it. But once you were there, it was just an amazing experience of like English fans. And then our game was against Iceland, and the Icelandic fans just welcoming everybody, right? And they're giants, just like these giant blonde like Norsemen, right? Just so friendly, everyone hanging out together, partying. One of my friends actually lost his ticket, and random Iceland fans saw him looking around on the floor for it. So he stopped him and asked him, oh, you need a ticket? Pulls a ticket out of his pocket. We all go into the match together. The actual match itself was like a 1-1 draw, so it's kind of like inconsequential, but just everything around that, like I'll always remember. And I'm looking forward to the World Cup being here in Canada because you can kind of get that experience without having to fly there. But it's not going to be the same. Like there's no way it's going to be the same.
No. Yeah.
It's just completely different culture. But yeah, that's my Euro. Probably my favorite Euro memory is actually just going to one, enjoying it, and immersing myself in like that culture. Awesome.
Okay, we kind of derailed a little bit talking about Euro stuff, which I think is kind of a testament to our feelings about this movie. Do you have anything else you want to say about this movie in particular?
Not at all. It's a bad movie. None of it makes sense. Poorly done. Just an excuse to use existing footage. They had to film an additional like 20 minutes, I guess, to turn this into a TV movie.
Sure. Yeah.
It's kind of been lost to the internet. I don't know how you dug it up. I know you used Reddit or some other like nefarious means, but it's one of those buried. It's not a buried treasure. It's lost to the wind, and it should stay there.
No one remembered. No one cares. Yeah. Okay, should we crack on then and talk about some number ones at the time?
Let's do it.
So I did something a little bit different this time. I looked at video games, and it just happened. International Superstar Soccer 64 came out. I think it was either the week before or the week after this release. Pretty good game. It had a 91% average on Metacritic. We played the crap out of this game. I had a friend who had it, and then we got an N64. Just way better than FIFA at the time. I remember it was way faster. Certainly on the N64 at least. There wasn't anything else like it on the N64 at the time that I could think of, because it was pretty much only FIFA and ISS. There was some other game. There was like a Mia Hamm soccer game, but that was later on. But yeah, really good. Super memorable things. Like it had super smooth gameplay and just really funny. Because they've got really good at how they contextualize commentary in football games now, so it seems all smooth, but this didn't. So they only recorded like a couple of ways of them saying like a country's name. So they'd be like, Croatia, have a throw in. And it'd just be like, oh, okay, that was a bit. And but really good game. Did you play it?
No, so I was a Nintendo guy too, like growing up. So I had FIFA 99, which is probably I guess ISS would have been available here, but it was seen as like an off-brand soccer game, to be honest. So you would play FIFA, and that was terrible back in 99. Like each guy was made up of like 4 polygons, and it felt like mush to control.
Yeah, they were. I always remember the FIFA games feeling terrible. Like you'd press sprint, and it would just be so laggy and terrible.
Yeah, and even the ball control, like you would pass to somebody, and the ball would be like on a magnet towards them. Yeah. But I got an emulator recently, and I tried ISS just randomly. And it's amazing. Like it still holds up to this day. You could play it and actually still enjoy it. So and that's what eventually became PES, right?
Yeah. So it became, for a while they called it Pro Evo, and then it became PES shortly after that as well.
Right.
And top of the box office at the time was Godzilla, which is a rotten film. It's rated 15% on Rotten Tomatoes, but it did make 398 million against 150 million budget. But it was kind of a big deal at the time because it was bringing the Godzilla movies to the West. But then until relatively recently, it basically killed off the franchise, right?
It's funny. So you said it made 300 million, but 150 million to make. I'm guessing they still lost money because around Godzilla, you were living in England at that time, right?
Yep.
And I don't know if this was the same. You couldn't go anywhere without hearing about Godzilla. Like the little Taco Bell Chihuahua.
Yeah,
Taco Bell Chihuahua was getting chased by Godzilla. Godzilla TV show, like a cartoon, and just Puff Daddy made a song about Godzilla.
I don't know that. Okay, sure.
With a famous guitarist, I can't remember who it was, but you couldn't do anything without hearing about Godzilla. So I'm sure the amount of money that they put into promoting it,
like marketing budget and stuff, took it way too. Maybe it made a profit, but nowhere near as much as movie studios want to make.
Yeah, no, I'm sure they lost money on that one. But the new ones are pretty decent. I've seen King of the Monsters, and that was enjoyable. I haven't seen Godzilla versus Kong. I don't know if you've seen that one.
No, I've only seen the first one, just Godzilla with Bryan Cranston. That's the only one of them I've seen. Which
was not great.
But. So, it's so-so. It's, again, the same thing as a lot of these films fall into, just concentrating on the humans way too much.
Yeah. King of Monsters is better. It's much more like Pacific Rim, where it's just like the kaiju fighting each other for a couple hours.
Okay. So that's Godzilla. Some more number ones next time. So now football at the time. So this film actually came out in the run-up to World Cup 98. So World Cup 98 was a tournament that saw France crowned world champions, beating Brazil 3-0 in the final. England went out in the last 16 in an all-time classic against Argentina. Again, going out controversially somewhat. Went out on penalties, but had a Sol Campbell header disallowed for an apparent elbow, but I never saw it. And I had to look up Brazil. I had to look up Portugal. Sorry, because I didn't remember them being in it, and they were kind of in the midst of a dry spell, having not qualified in the World Cup for like 3 years in a row. It's one of those things you never. Current Portugal are always contenders, but you kind of forget back in those days they kind of weren't. They had a long barren spell where they weren't really up to much.
Yeah, from 90, what was it? Something like, I think in the 80s they might have qualified. And then, up until 2002, you never heard from them. And that's why we would never follow them as kids, right? Portugal was never a good team.
Yeah, it's almost like the opposite of what I felt for England as a Portsmouth fan. You didn't care for Portugal because there was just nothing to write home about. Yeah,
well, there's this stereotype of Portuguese people, right? It's what do you call a Portuguese person every 4 years? A Brazilian. And it's 100% true, right? We would grab Bristol board and make Brazil signs for USA 94 and 98 and stuff like that. But yeah, it's nice to actually have a team to cheer for every couple of years. And we'll have Canada eventually too, which will be nice. So,
yeah. We might make 2022 and then make 2026 as hosts. So yeah.
Well, on top of that, there's 48 teams in 2026. So if we don't qualify for that, it's pretty sad.
Okay, and MLS kicked off its third season. Chicago Fire became the first expansion team to reach a final, and they beat reigning and 2 times champions DC United 2-0 in the final.
Playing ISS, did you ever scroll down to the Americas and play as any of the generic American teams? No?
Never. Always played as European teams and stuff, yeah.
And they weren't officially licensed, right? There would just be Manchester Red.
Yeah, it was made up teams. It's the same Manchester Red, Manchester Blue.
Yeah, we had Toronto. We had Toronto in those games, but they were always Toronto Blue, I guess, because of the Maple Leafs and Blue Jays.
I got you.
And the only existing team at that time would have been yellow, the Toronto Lynx.
Okay.
So they didn't do their research.
No, clearly not.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty excited. This is the first time I can legit talk about Portsmouth, and it actually has some bearing on the film we've talked about. So Portsmouth in 1998, Terry Venables was manager during Euro 96, and he announced that he would be stepping down prior because the English FA refused to give him a new contract as they wanted to wait for results on the pitch. And he was like, screw you, I'm better than that. I'm leaving. There were lots of rumors around at the time that it was actually because they weren't keen on his shady business dealings outside of football. So interestingly,
that also happened with, was it Don Revie?
Yeah, well, he agreed to go and join Abu Dhabi whilst he was England manager.
Okay.
United Emirates, sorry. He decided to go and manage them.
Okay.
But yeah, so how does this tie to Portsmouth? Venables went on to manage the Australian national team after England, and at the same time became chairman of Portsmouth, and he purchased a 51% controlling stake in Portsmouth, and he bought it for £1 because we were in debt, and he agreed to take on all the debt. Suspiciously, we made 5 signings in that close season, and 4 of them were Australians. Only one of them went on to be anywhere near successful. We narrowly avoided relegation on goal difference that season, and he then left the club in an absolutely dire financial situation and has sifted about £550,000 out of the club and left them on the brink of bankruptcy.
Wow.
The season's also famous for being the season where Man City dropped down to Division 2. So they finished a point below us and went down. But yeah, and then that's kind of what led the guy who subsequently owned Portsmouth after that was a Silicon Valley millionaire, Milan Mandaric, and he kind of took us to the Premier League and stuff. But yeah, Terry Venables, shady character for sure.
What was the nickname? Venables something? Am I thinking of that wrong?
Oh, I don't know that.
I thought there was. Maybe not.
I don't know. His middle name is... But yeah, anyway, so as a kid... 1998, I'm 14 by that point. I'm like, this is amazing. We've got ex-England manager Terry Venables as our chairman, and our manager at the time was a guy called Terry Fenwick, who played in defence during Italia 90. So I'm like, this is perfect. We've got everything. We've got former England player and the England manager. We'll smash the league. We didn't, obviously. It all went terribly wrong.
Sad part is there was no internet back then either to inform young Adam that
exactly
something's afoot.
And my dad didn't say that's not how it works to me because I got too excited. So yeah, That is not how it worked out anyway. Okay, so before we do Footy Flicks, it's time for me to play your players right. So you have prepared it this time. So
I have.
I can have a run. I obviously don't know what you're going to unveil.
This was not easy. It was almost easier last season.
Yeah,
when
just
I
random quiz stuff.
Quiz you on random things here. Yeah. So what I'm going to pull from is all-time appearances in the Euros.
Oh, okay.
We know that Cristiano Ronaldo just broke that record, I believe. Actually, he broke it a little while ago. He's at 23. But we're not going to start with him because that would be too easy.
Okay.
So I'm going to go to my list here. I'm going to pick the keeper that he faced off against today, and that was Hugo Lloris. He has 14 appearances at the Euros.
Okay.
All right. Does fellow goalkeeper Peter Schmeichel have more or less?
Gonna say less.
You're right. He has one less at 13.
One? Oh, okay. I thought it was more than that, but okay.
You're not seeing the reflection of my glasses, are you?
No.
Okay. Someone from England this time. Wayne Rooney. More appearances or less appearances at the Euro?
And what was Schmeichel's number 13?
Schmeichel's at 13, yes.
So Wayne Rooney would have played in 3 Euros, group stages plus a quarterfinal. That's 4 times 2 is 8. I'm going to say less. I think he made like 11 or 12.
Close. You made 10.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so you're at 3 now. Jurgen Klinsmann, more or less appearances at the Euros?
Than 10. So he played all the way through Euro 96. Maybe he was injured for part of it. So that's like 7 games. Are we counting? Because Euro 96 was the first Euros where they were unified. Is this including
West Germany?
Yeah.
I can't answer that for you.
Okay. I'm going to say just because Germany are more successful than England, he played more.
You are right.
Yeah.
He played 13.
Okay.
All right. This gets tough now. This gets tough to try and beat you. All right. So Jurgen Klinsmann was at 13. Xavi Alonso, more or less?
13.
Than 13. Think about all those Spain appearances. Total domination in that 2008, 10, 12 swing.
But I feel like he wasn't always playing every single game. He's one of those players that became more useful later. 13. But then they got to the final like twice. So that's like 14 games there on their own. I'm going to say that's a trick and it was less.
It is less. So what do you got now? 4?
6, no?
No. It was a 5?
Maybe 5. Maybe
okay.
You can count when you do the editing.
I'll give you 5.
Either way, I'm the current leader.
Oh, man. You might run the gamut here and then everyone else is screwed that comes on. We might have to reset it. Okay. Let me go to the bottom of the list here. The guy that I mentioned before, Nuno Gomes, did he have more or less appearances for Portugal? Then Xavi Alonso's 12.
Less.
You said less?
Yeah. Damn it. How many?
It was 14.
Oh, okay. I was thinking he had like 10 or something.
No, I was hoping by saying I'll scroll to the bottom of the list, it would have messed you up.
Okay.
He has 14 appearances.
All right. Wow.
Quite surprising. He stayed on there for a while.
Yeah. Okay.
So you 6.
6. New leader.
Doubled our existing one by 3, right?
Yeah. So, Footy Flicks. There is next to nothing in this film that is not archive footage, except for the aforementioned at the very top of the show where we talked about The waiter doing his tricks at the beginning. Basically it. Yeah. To It's Coming Home. There's nothing else. And as I said before, I don't think they necessarily did a good job sometimes at showing that footage well. And it's weird. They did things like, there's the thing of Stuart Pearce smashing that penalty and going absolutely crazy because he was like exercising the demons of World Cup 90 where he'd missed a penalty against Germany. He scores the one against Spain. And they're in the pub and they're like, oh, look at Pearce. It's like, okay, everyone knows. We all saw it. You don't have to keep... It's kind of like they just do a bad job of like highlighting the wrong bits. They don't necessarily describe football particularly well.
I was fading in and out of the movie at that point.
But yeah, so I don't think it's too hot. Are there any particular highlights for you?
I mean, the England-Scotland matches.
Yeah. That is
phenomenal, right? I know it's hyped up from you guys, right? But yeah, watching that is always cool.
And compared to the crap that we just got where they drew 0-0 in the Euros, like this game
so much hype.
Definitely better than that. Okay, so last thing, where do we rank this film?
Bottom of the barrel for me.
Yeah,
easily behind the other two.
Totally agree. I'd have a lot of nostalgia for this period. Like the football's amazing, but I'd rather just go and watch the highlights on YouTube than watch this film.
Yeah, 100%. And I'd like what 2/3 of this movie is archival footage.
Probably, yeah.
It's such a weird. You remember how they made Power Rangers in the 90s? Like they bought Japanese footage, and then they put the teenagers around it. That's like, is that what they did with this movie? They're like, we've got this existing footage. We need to make a TV movie out of it. Let's just film these really crappy scenes. But no, not even, because it looks like they filmed Neil Morrissey at actual matches, right?
Well, it can't be at the actual matches because this got filmed in '98. They filmed him at some matches somewhere.
Wow,
like
so
took the effort to take him to Wembley and stuff and walk up the steps and all that crap. But yeah, do you want to know the good news? There's another film made by the same writer called An Evening with Gary Lineker that was about Italia 90 that came out before this.
By another, the director or writer?
Same writer. I think he's called Arthur Smith.
Somebody wrote this movie?
Somebody
sat down and wrote a plot for this movie.
Yeah. And then An Evening with Gary Lineker, I think, was originally written as a theatre play and got made into a film. And then this got, stage play in 91 and then became a film in 94.
Just like One Night in Istanbul.
Yeah. But the difference with An Evening with Gary Lineker has some genuine stars in it. Clive Owen is in it.
Oh, really?
He's the main character. So maybe it's good. Anyway.
I doubt it. So we got to start wondering, too, on our master list where these movies fit in.
This is this is somewhere near United Passions. It's boring as hell.
Is it worse than My English Soccer Adventure? It's down there, I think. Like that's like a 3-movie.
My English Soccer Adventure probably stuck with me more just for that song that got stuck in my head. My Big Adventure, or whatever it's called. Yeah, Misty's Big Adventure. Yeah. Like it's a good song. Like that alone. Like that's on my Spotify now. Like. Well, this stupid movie's got It's Coming Home stuck in my head. True. Like, I was hanging out with my daughter and I started like singing It's Coming Home, and like I was going to explain it to her and I was like, nah, she's too young. She won't get it. Yeah. But yeah, we've got to start wondering. So, do you think we'll do a special at the end of the season then, where we start ranking these movies? I think so. Against the master list? Yeah, I think we do. Maybe start a never-ending list. Yeah, start penciling in where they fit in that giant list. Yeah, I thought it'd make those discussions a bit easier if we both have that. But yeah, this is somewhere in that bottom for sure. Yeah, it's a bad movie. Okay. That's going to do it then, I guess, for us. So, Mark, where can people find you on the internet? Find me at Mark83 on Twitter, on Instagram at A3Football, and now also on Instagram, Matchday Matinee. We have an account on there as well. Reach out. Cool. Follow us. Yeah, I'm going to try and do some Instagram live stuff maybe. I'm finally going to watch Ted Lasso, so maybe to test it, we'll do my reactions to the first episode or something after I've watched it. You watch the whole season and then you can recap me on things I might have forgotten. Okay. All right. Deal. Yeah. All right. Great show. And as for me, you can find me at Joypad Goalposts on Instagram, Twitter, and the channel on YouTube, where there is some stuff slowly going up. I started editing some videos the other day. By the time you listen to this, it might actually be up. Who knows?
Season 2?
Yeah, like the second half of season 2.
Get it over.
Yeah. Okay, so from the terraces to the theatre of dreams, we are Matchday Matinee. Thank you very much for listening. Bye.